China is kind of built themselves up to be this impenetrable fortress. They have nuclear weapons, they have hypersonic missiles with the delivery capability of those nuclear weapons. So I think in the end of the day, even the Pentagon planners understand this. I mean, they can talk about nuclear weapons, but that's all crazy talk. I just saw a War on the Rocks. It's a neocon funded think tank. They talk about the article is literally, we need to prepare our military for nuclear warfare. I mean, this is crazy talk, man. Like you kidding me? Nuclear warfare, and especially when the other nuclear power, China and Russia, have enough nukes to destroy United States. Mm-hmm. What are you talking about? I mean, mutually assured destruction is still a thing. You can't just pretend it doesn't exist. So yeah, I don't see they have a good solution. They will struggle, they will cry, they'll produce a lot of copium, but in the end, China will continue to rise, and US, unless the current crop of elite get thrown out, it's going to continue to be a shit show.
Well, back to something you said about mutually assured destruction. That goes back to something that I was just talking about with the attacks on Chinese companies and stuff. I believe that they have become so panicked in the West that they are saying, you know what, we have a shot in the dark to prevent China's rise. So let's just throw everything out there. Maybe something will stick. But if it doesn't and it leads to war, I believe some of these people believe that they would rather for it to go to end in a major war than to allow someone else to supplant the United States as the global hegemon. And on top of that, they often talk about China's copying the United States technology. And I was thinking, as you were talking, I was thinking about how at one time, most people may not realize this, but a few years ago, they were saying that China was trying to mimic the United States when it comes to rail guns. Well, the United States gave up on rail guns, and China has mastered rail guns, and they have actual working rail guns on their warships, along with hypersonic missiles that the United States has yet to field. And I don't know if you can remember this, Carl, but America, they were talking about the Chinese always stealing technology. And then one day they unveiled their new destroyer, and it was a copy of the Chinese destroyer that the Chinese had for a few years. It was, so nobody talks about that, but I remember it. What say you on those matters, man?
And the new design for the next generation US destroyer is not going to be, I mean, it doesn't exist. If everything goes according to their plan, maybe in the 2030s, you will get the first prototype. So whereas the China already have like more than five Type 55 destroyers right now deployed, and they have many more in the pipeline. And that's another thing. The U.S. doesn't have the shipbuilding capability. The U.S. have 7 shipyards. China has exactly. Thank you. China's shipbuilding capability is over 200 times. Any one of China's the largest China shipyard, Jiangnan shipyard, just off near Shanghai, is larger than all 7 of U.S. shipyards. And so right now, U.S. have to go to its vassal states, its allies in South Korea and Japan to help to source Navy warship building. I mean, this is how the industrialized U.S. is. I used to say all U.S. have left is military Keynesianism, to build, at least are manufacturing weapons at home. That's not even true anymore. They have to go to South Korea and Japan for help for the naval buildup, because U.S. itself cannot match the Chinese shipbuilding capability. I mean, it's not even close.
So how can you let's just use common sense, because common sense is not so common today, especially in the Western world. Okay, you have a nation that has over $1 trillion of your debt. You have a nation that's your largest financer. You have a nation that supplies 93 to 95% of all goods on your shelf. You have a nation that has the largest army in the world, the largest now navy in the world. And they said within about 2025 to 2026, China will have the largest air force in the world. And you have this same nation that has a shipbuilding capacity of over 200 times that of not just the United States, I might add, but of the United States and NATO combined. How do you think a war will end up when your ship is sunk and you cannot replace it, but they can replace their ships in a magnitude of 200 times faster than you can? I mean, Carl, what do you have to say about this lunacy?
I mean, I guess the only thing that I can think of right now, their plan is to have all their U.S. warship getting sunk in the Strait of Malacca, so they can block the traffic in the Strait of Malacca. That's the only realistic scenario I can see. They can have a attempted blockade of the Straits of Malacca. I mean, I mean, like the thing is, China is not even looking for active military confrontation with the United States. China was perfectly fine to do business with everybody, including U.S. It's the U.S. that's like hell-bending on having a military confrontation with China, which is accelerating the China's own armament. Right, and I mean, like people, and these same Western analysts will say, "Oh, well, why does China need a large navy? Well, look, we know why China is building this navy for. You know, I mean, like they're not building the large navy just for Taiwan. You know, Taiwan is on the doorstep. They're not building like blue water projection capabilities just for Taiwan. They are building those navy because, you know, right now you have 11 aircraft carrier of United States floating around the world. That's why they're building their navy.
TNT, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, Rashid, I take the red pill diaries every day. Thank you so much. But I want to bring this up right here because this is funny right here to me. Anyway, this is from Incognito. I got to put this on the screen. He said, USA has great products like woke movies and airplanes with doors that fall off in the flight.
Yeah, so, I mean, like
go ahead.
Like what the hell is Osprey, right? Like that thing kills more American airmen. I mean, like in peacetime. That right now China is not even doing anything. The U.S. plane like F-35s are falling into the waters. And did you see what happened to that German destroyer in the Red Sea?
Yeah.
It attempt to fire a missile because they mistakenly identified a U.S. drone as they thought it was a Yemeni drone. So they try to shoot a missile at a U.S. drone, try to shoot it down, but then their own missile misfire and it blows up. I mean, this is the level of naval the NATO competency right now we're facing, and this is right after that British warship that backed itself into another warship in port. I mean, like, and on top of this, they have a recruitment crisis. The most advanced U.S. Aircraft carrier, the super carrier Ford, it's only 30%. There are 30% short staff because they couldn't recruit enough sailors. Well, I wonder why. You know, maybe young Americans don't want to die for Israel. I mean, who knows? It's just a crazy guess.
And don't forget, Carl, the British aircraft carrier is still in port because it has a lot of malfunctions going on. And don't forget that they had to pull out of one of their warships out of the Red Sea because it had no air defense system. And last week or so, remember when they called themselves thumping their chest at Russia by testing a intercontinental ballistic missile and it failed? So,
and these are the people who like every 2 years they will come up with an article. Oh, the Britain is going to send HMS Elizabeth to South China Sea, and I'm like, to do what? To do what? You don't even have any planes. Well, what are you going to do?
A fire that ripped through a Royal Navy aircraft carrier left 10 sailors needing medical attention and destroyed at least 100 beds. The fire broke out on board HMS Queen Elizabeth, the Navy's flagship carrier, which was alongside in Glenmalin in Scotland, where it was offloading ammunition before it sails on to Rosyth for repairs. We understand the fire broke out late on a Friday night when a number of sailors were asleep and others had been drinking. Now, we understand a number of the sailors were drunk or had been drinking.
Just ridiculous. I mean, like, these are just copium produced to reassure their readership, their audience, that, yeah, we are still the top dog in the world, when, in fact, the world is crumbling. I mean, like, even the gardener himself, Joseph Borrell, admitted the garden is finished. Jungle is taking over, folks. The jungle is taking over.
Yeah. And this, what we're talking about with the 200 times capacity, this was revealed by US Navy intelligence. This was not something that was said by anyone else. This was revealed by as they did an assessment on the Chinese shipbuilding capabilities. And this does not even include the shipbuilding capabilities of just domestic vessels or something like that. We're talking about in a military capacity, that China's shipbuilding capacity is over 200 times that of the United States and NATO. How can you even think about going to war in a position like that when your economy is in decline? And Carl, we got to go back to something, man. And I got to let you address this. We just talked about the imprint that China has on the economy. Now, if the Chinese decide, with all of the provocations, and we're not talking about Russia at this moment, we're talking about the Chinese at this moment, with all of the provocations over Taiwan and the one China policy, if China decides to embargo America, think about the economy, the U.S. economy that is already spiraling out of control. And think about all of the bankruptcies, all of the mass unemployments. And then when you think about the shelves going empty, those are stores closing up. You're thinking about the shipping from the trains to the planes to the trucks. All of those people are out of jobs. Then you think about the knock-on effect, because now that all of these things have closed and all of these people are out of jobs, they can't repay the loans to the banks that they borrowed from. And now you have a banking problem on top of that. Do these people ever sit down and think about the knock-on effect of their irrational, insane policies?
That's funny, because some of them obviously do think about it, because I just watched the ridiculous 60 minutes segment with the U.S. ambassador to China, Nicholas Burns. So I guess Burns probably received a memo from National Security Council. Maybe Jake Sullivan tell him to invite 60 Minutes to China, and all 60 Minutes did, instead of interviewing Chinese people in China, they just interviewed the U.S. ambassador to China, Nicholas Burns, and he said yes, if we cut off trade with China, right now there's 750,000 U.S. jobs that's directly tied to exporting goods to China, and this is which present a problem. Now, of course, the real figure is much larger than 750,000 jobs. 750 jobs are just the U.S. The Americans who work in companies that are exporting to China. Then there's also Americans who are involved in like taking imports from China and distributing in the United States. And there's an add-on effect of their family. But in the end, after all that, Burns said, but we don't want to live in a world that's dominated by China.
We want to become and overtake the United States as the dominant country globally, and we don't want that to happen. We don't want to live in a world where the Chinese are the dominant country.
And I'm like, buddy, you are the U.S. ambassador to China. You live in Beijing. You literally live in a Chinese-dominated world. I mean, like you just better get used to it, or get the fuck out. I mean, what the hell are you doing? You suck ass as a diplomat. You are in China to represent United States. You know, your goal should have been building bridges between two nations, but instead, what you're doing is you're just hosting 60 Minutes to do propaganda, another anti-China propaganda. Like, why you even need it? Like, you should just and you know, this is the same person, of course, tweeting out that Victoria Nuland is the heart and soul of the U.S. Foreign Service. I mean, like, these people are. I don't know, man. It's they kind of know the truth, but they refuse to admit it.
Well, refusing to acknowledge something that's obvious is not going to stop it from being the truth. This is what I'm saying. Only people who are so encapsulated into their own minds can separate the truth and reality from their little fictional world of US hegemony and stuff like that. That day is over. That day has been over. And what we're seeing now is the ramifications. A lot of people like to think that this financial crisis started in 2008. Some think it was 2010. Some think it was 2002 when they removed the Glass-Steagall Act. But I want to say that it even happened prior to that. Some people say, well, it was when the world went off the gold and silver standard in 71. I say it was before that. And what we're living in the contortion of the dead snake right now. You know how if you cut the head of the snake off and the snake body moves for like 3 hours. This is what we're doing. America started robbing its currency of silver in the 60s. People were not aware of that. If you go back, the currency, the coins were 90% and 30% silver. In 65, no quarters, no dimes were printed in silver anymore. Then from 65 to 69, the half dollars and the dollars were silver. They cut that off. And when Charles de Gaulle and the rest of them started seeing that America was living way above her means, and Richard Nixon said, the US dollar is as good as gold. And Charles de Gaulle said, well, then give me gold then. And that move right there exposed America's weak hand economically. And that's why the United States had to go around the world and try to find some way to keep the dollar relevant. So they went into the Arabian Peninsula with the petrodollar. And from that point on, they have been trying to maintain that at all costs, because the dollar, the US dollar, is the life's blood of not only the military machine, but of the Western world, because the euro and the British pound is tied to that too. And they derive wealth from that dollar being the reserve currency. What say you on that, Carl?
Or France, you know, what would France would be without the wealth extraction from Africa?
That's right.
You know, like France would just be another third world nation without all the capitals it extracts from the African nation. We're living through interesting times, Rashid. I mean, this is why I'm in Bali.
Yeah.
And this, you know what, this reminds me of that recent video of a bunch of youth who went into protest for calling for ceasefire in Palestine. And I forgot, it's one of the U.S. senator talk. I forgot the senator's name, but all the protesters were standing and shouting "Free Palestine," and all the boomer audience, they're literally just like covering their ears and then standing up and telling them to shut up. And this is for me, this is like perfect epitomize America. It's like all these people who are in power, they are literally trying to, they're covering their ears so to protect themselves from the reality of the world.
So, Mehdi, a channel member, he's asking you on something that you said earlier about the U.S. deploying Marines or Green Berets to an island. It's a Chinese island, so we won't even say a Taiwanese island. That's a Chinese island because Taiwan is a part of China.
Taiwan is an island, right? So if you look at the map, like this will be the Chinese coast. This will be the island of Taiwan. The Kinmen Island will be like right here. I mean, it's literally, but like even the even under the so-called Republic of China (ROC) on Taiwan, Kinmen Island is defined as part of the Fujian province because it's right next to it. And yes, they deploy Green Berets to the Kinmen Islands. Again, it's just an act of provocation. It's not, but I think that provocation backfired because that eventually led to the Chinese Coast Guard now patrolling the waters all around the Kinmen Island.
China's Coast Guard showing force around a group of islands controlled by Taiwan within spitting distance of the mainland. Will Ripley is out front.
Just off the foggy coast near Taiwan's frontline Kinmen Islands, the Chinese Coast Guard intercepts a Taiwanese tourist boat. These are the waters where that incident happened, where the Chinese Coast Guard boarded the Taiwanese tourist boat and checked everyone's ID. You can see how close we are to the skyline of the Chinese city of Xiamen. There are Chinese construction boats all throughout these waters. Pretty easy to mix up which side, the Chinese side or the Taiwanese side, you're on when you're this close. Chinese officials blame Taiwan's ruling party, reiterating Beijing's sovereign claim over Taiwan, promising to step up patrols in the area. We've been out on this boat for less than 2 hours, and we've already seen at least 4 Chinese Coast Guard boats, including that one right over there, which just made a U-turn. Our captain says that means they're monitoring us just like we're watching them.
And there's nothing U.S. can do about it. I mean, what U.S. is going to send its aircraft carrier there or what? I mean, people could Google Kinmen Island, K-I-M-M-E-N. Just see where Kinmen Island is located. It's really ridiculous why they deploy Green Berets over there. But that's an island that United States were contemplating because in 1958, the second the Taiwan Strait crisis, when the PLA started bombarding Kinmen Islands, that's the time when U.S. planned to use nuclear weapon against mainland China if there was a People's Liberation Army landing on the Kinmen Islands. Daniel Ellsberg revealed that like a few years back before he died. Yeah.
Wait, don't forget, Carl, that they're also trying to force the hand of the government in South Korea so that the United States can turn Jeju Island into a naval facility, which is close to China also.
Yeah, they're trying to build a whole series of military bases installation along the so-called First Island chain. This is why they're going back to the Philippines. Now they have 9 military bases in the Philippines that U.S. military can access. But again, they already have their hands full in Ukraine and in Middle East. I don't think they will be able to extricate themselves from either of those situations in a long time because it doesn't look like they're ready to finally settle, to have a peaceful settlement in Ukraine crisis yet. I mean, this could have ended in March 2022, but for Boris Johnson flying to tell Ukrainians, no, we got your back, right? I mean, we all know right now the obstacles for negotiation is not from the Ukrainian side. They were ready to negotiate in Istanbul in March 2022. They were that negotiation was stopped because of the West, and right now I think the West is also too busy. Particularly United States, too busy with the re-election. They're not gonna, I don't think they will be able to stir up the water. I mean, they will try to stir up the water, but I don't think there will be any active, hot confrontation anytime soon in South China Sea.
Saint Fluffy Snow says, Jimin, the most famous island city in China, is incredible. Walking tour by Walk East. He's telling you got to check that out. Evidently, he's speaking from experience.
Yeah. The walking tour by Walk East. I think it's a channel where they walk. They literally just walk through like different Chinese cities and without any dialogue and just let you show how the city is from a ground level. I think I saw a couple of their videos. Pretty good. I mean, people can check out. And Xiamen is a city that the U.S. Green Beret would see from Kinmen across the water, which they cannot go. So they might as well get on YouTube and watch what they're missing.
Cold-blooded. That was cold-blooded.